Welcome back. I'm Natural News, your go-to source for the stories that matter, told with curiosity and just a touch of intrigue. Today, we're diving into a book that has raised a whole lot of questions since its publication nearly 30 years ago. That book is Inventing the AIDS Virus by Dr. Peter Duesberg. This isn't just a book, it's a deep dive into the heart of one of the most significant medical debates of our time. So, settle in, and let's explore the fascinating world of AIDS research and the questions that just won't go away. Let's start with the opening chapter, aptly titled Losing the War on AIDS. Dr. Duesberg doesn't mince words here. He argues that the war on AIDS, as it's been fought since the discovery of HIV in 1984, has been a colossal failure. Despite billions of dollars in funding and the efforts of some of the world's top scientists, we haven't seen a significant decrease in new AIDS cases. In fact, the numbers keep rising. Dr. Duesberg points out a glaring inconsistency: the virus-AIDS hypothesis. This is the idea that HIV is the sole cause of AIDS, a collection of 30 old diseases, from Kaposi's sarcoma to tuberculosis. But here's the catch. If you have one of these diseases and HIV antibodies, it's called AIDS. If you have the same disease without the antibodies, it's called by its old name. This raises a big question. Is HIV really the culprit, or is it just a convenient scapegoat? Dr. Duesberg also highlights the lack of effective treatments. The drugs available, like AZT, were originally developed as chemotherapy agents and come with a host of side effects. Worse yet, they seem to cause AIDS-like symptoms on their own. Public health efforts haven't curbed the epidemic either. As Dr. Duesberg points out, so-called virus hunting became the dominant force in medical research following the end of World War II. The success of the polio vaccine and the fear of infectious diseases led to a massive influx of funding and a shift in focus towards viruses. This set the stage for the virus-AIDS hypothesis. Dr. Duesberg argues that this shift was driven by more than just scientific evidence. It was also influenced by the political and financial incentives of the time. The federal government, eager to show progress in the fight against disease, poured money into virus research. This created a powerful establishment that was heavily invested in the virus theory of disease. Now let's get into the meat of Dr. Duesberg's argument. He presents a multi-pronged case against HIV as the cause of AIDS. First, he points out that HIV fails to meet Koch's postulates, the gold standard for proving that a microbe causes a disease. For example, HIV is rarely found in the tissues affected by AIDS, like the brain neurons in dementia patients. Second, he argues that the long latency period attributed to HIV is inconsistent with the known behavior of viruses. Viruses typically cause disease within days or weeks, not years. Dr. Duesberg suggests that the latency period is a convenient invention to explain away the lack of evidence linking HIV to AIDS. Third, he highlights the fact that many people with HIV never develop AIDS. This is a crucial point. If HIV is the cause, why don't all infected individuals get sick? Dr. Duesberg argues that HIV is just a marker of drug use and other risk factors, not the cause of AIDS. This brings us to the heart of Dr. Duesberg's alternative hypothesis, the drug-AIDS connection. He argues that the long-term use of recreational drugs, like nitrite inhalants, cocaine, and heroin, is the real cause of AIDS. These drugs are known to be toxic and can cause immune suppression, weight loss, and other AIDS-defining symptoms. Dr. Duesberg backs up his claim with evidence showing that the AIDS epidemic in the United States and Europe closely follows the pattern of drug use. For example, the rise in AIDS cases among male homosexuals correlates with the popularity of nitrite inhalants in the 1970s and 80s. He also points out that the symptoms of AIDS in Africa are different from those in the West, suggesting that the cause might not be the same. In Africa, AIDS is often associated with malnutrition and tuberculosis, not the recreational drugs common in the West. Dr. Duesberg doesn't stop there. He also takes aim at the drug, AZT, the first approved treatment for AIDS. He argues that AZT is not only ineffective but also harmful. The drug, originally developed as a chemotherapy agent, is known to be highly toxic and can cause anemia, muscle wasting, and other serious side effects. Dr. Duesberg cites studies showing that AZT can accelerate the progression of AIDS and increase mortality. He argues that the drug's approval was rushed and based on flawed studies that failed to account for its long-term effects. Of course, Dr. Duesberg's views haven't been without controversy. He has faced significant backlash from the scientific establishment, including censorship and attempts to discredit his work. Despite this, he has continued to speak out, gathering support from other scientists and activists who question the HIV/AIDS hypothesis. Dr. Duesberg's story is a powerful reminder of the challenges faced by those who dare to challenge the status quo. It raises important questions about the nature of scientific inquiry and the role of dissent in the pursuit of truth. So, where do we go from here? Dr. Duesberg calls for a reevaluation of the HIV/AIDS hypothesis and a shift in focus toward understanding the true causes of AIDS. He believes that by investigating the role of drugs and other risk factors, we can develop more effective prevention and treatment strategies. The debate over the cause of AIDS is far from over. But one thing is clear: the current approach isn't working. It's time for a new direction, one that embraces open inquiry and challenges the assumptions that have guided AIDS research for decades. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the pages of Inventing the AIDS Virus. I hope this episode has sparked your curiosity and encouraged you to think critically about the information we receive. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And don't forget to tune in next time for more stories that matter, told with depth and insight. Until then, I'm Natural News, once again telling you to stay curious and stay informed.
This has been a Books Alive video from Natural News on the book Inventing the AIDS Virus by Dr. Peter Duesberg. Visit brighteon.com for more fascinating videos like this one, and visit naturalnews.com for full editorial coverage and breaking news on critical stories that keep you informed and aware of what's really going on.